Welcome to the last panel in our Cyber Trends 2024 series. I'm Andy Haass, principal at Booz Allen Hamilton and incoming co-chairman of the Cyber Center of Excellence, or CCOE, a San Diego-based nonprofit that mobilizes businesses, academia, and government to grow the regional cyber economy and create a more secure digital community for all. Cybersecurity is now everyone's business. The FBI reports more than 150% increase in cybercrime complaints across all industries in the last 5 years, totaling $37 billion in losses. And according to IBM, the global average cost of a data breach has climbed to over $4.45 million. More than half of these attacks are aimed at small and medium-sized businesses, like those that make up our region's economic engine. Now pair that with the global shortage of cyber professionals to thwart these attacks to the tune of 450,000 openings in the US alone and 5,500 here in San Diego. And it becomes critical to address this risk. The good news is San Diego is leading the charge with more than 1,000 cyber firms and the Navy's Information Warfare Systems Command. The cluster accounts for more than 26,000 jobs and has a total economic impact of $4 billion annually, which is the equivalent of hosting 24 Comic-Cons. Our collaborative ecosystem is developing new technologies, defenses, and cyber warriors to combat the ever-evolving threat landscape, which we'll be talking about today. I'm thrilled to be here with our esteemed panel today to talk about the cyber trends we've seen this year and what's on the horizon for 2025. It's my pleasure to welcome our panel, Robert Hood, the CEO of SpotLink, and Brett Lally, Supervisory Special Agent, FBI. Robert, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Robert Hood, CEO of SpotLink. We're a technology solutions firm, which also puts us in the category of a managed service provider and managed security services provider. In that we provide IT services mostly to small businesses, small, medium businesses. Been in business for about 25 years and always trying to stay ahead of the bad guys by providing good services to our clients. Personally, I have a degree in physics with a concentration in computational methods. That's where I kind of got my love of computers, went into it right out of college. So I've been in the tech field for about 40 years now. So back then, one person could know essentially all there was to know about IT. But now, cybersecurity has many sub-careers right inside of it. Been an amazing journey to watch, and it's an exciting field to be in.
Great. Look forward to getting your perspectives today. And Brett, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you for having me. Brett Lally, I'm a Supervisory Special Agent at the FBI San Diego Field Office. I oversee a squad of agents, analysts, and computer scientists which focus on the national security cyber threat that we face. We work in tandem with our sister squad, which is a criminal cyber squad that investigates more of the things like ransomware, computer intrusion, incidents for profit, and a number of other matters. We work in concert with our fellow law enforcement partners, both here in the San Diego area of responsibility, as well as internationally and throughout the 56 field offices that the FBI has. We have a lot of resources that are out there. It's not just our San Diego teams that we leverage when there's a cyber incident or when we're doing outreach with our partners. So I have 16 years with the FBI as both an intelligence analyst and a special agent, and the last 5 of which have been focused on cyber. So thanks again for having me.
Great. Look forward to getting your perspectives today. With that, we'll move into our first question, and Robert, we'll start with you. What are some of the cybersecurity threats that have kept you up at night this year, both, I guess, for your company and for your clients?
Well, I'd have to say that ransomware has got to be at the top of that list. It's just, from a business owner's perspective, you suddenly come in one morning and everything that you've built is suddenly locked away from you. And so your whole business is at risk. And suddenly you're in this situation where you've got to either give money to criminals or actually possibly save your business. I have a little personal perspective from this too, because as a business owner a few years back, one of the software we had a vulnerability in it, and we had a ransomware attack on us, or at least in an attempt to. Luckily, the other layers of security shut it down pretty quick, but it was scary just to even feel that initial effects of it. So it's really important, that companies out there put layers of security, not just one type. It's got to be a layered approach.
That's great. And in addition to, well, I guess to build on ransomware, which Brett you brought up earlier, anything else or that's kept kind of kept you up and kept you busy this year?
All right.
Or sorry, Brett. Yeah, moving over to
Okay.
Brett for your
Yeah,
perspective.
absolutely. I mean, look, I kind of got two thoughts on this. One 2024 seemed to be kind of like the year of the data breach for me, which, I don't want to use this form as, kind of pointing the finger or exacerbating any negative attention. But I mean, we've all seen it. We've all probably been victims. I myself have been a victim of multiple data breaches, not just this year, but of course in the past. And that data is out there, right? And cyber criminals are going to leverage that data. It's not going to be just targeted towards businesses, which that is a huge concern of ours, but just in your private lives, right? If your login credentials have been exposed, we're creatures of habit. I think that's what NIST found when they were doing studies on like password creation behavior. Humans don't do a great job of being creative with creating their new passwords. Whether it's once a quarter or a couple times a year that your business mandates you to change your password, or in your private life. Let's be honest, probably not many of us are just routinely exercising good cyber hygiene and changing our passwords. Some people may be a little nervous about using password managers too and adapting that technology. But if your password has been exposed out there, which, I mean, you can use free resources like haveibeenpwned.com. That's a famous one that I'm familiar with from my private life. You can see, okay, hey, I was exposed in this data breach for this retailer. And oh, wow, that's a password that I use a variant of on a lot of different platforms. And so the cyber criminals, they know this as well. And this makes their brute forcing attempts a lot easier because they know that we're creatures of a habit. We may use a word or a short phrase and just change those numbers at the end, or a special character might change, right? Like, hey, I'm guilty of that myself throughout the years. So like the bad guys know this too, and that the data breaches are just making that a lot easier. And I'd also be remiss if I didn't mention, being on the national security side of the house now, China. Like that definitely has kept me up at night. It's kept my colleagues and leadership in the FBI up at night. The Director Wray of the FBI, said it when he testified. The cyber threat from China probably is the defining threat of our generation right now. They're pre-positioning assets across both critical infrastructure as well as civilian infrastructure to provide both disruptive and destructive options to their leadership, should there be a reason to exercise those options. And like cyber is knit into a whole of government campaign for a PRC. It's not just like a military thing or an espionage thing. I mean, hey, we know from businesses, not just in San Diego, but throughout America, they're after intellectual property. They're looking to gain and maintain an economic advantage against the United States. So the three typhoons come to mind. I'll kind of wrap up with that. So Salt Typhoon, they've been in the news more recently. APT actor out of China that's been targeting communications providers. Primarily have gained some headlines recently with respect to people seeking election in this country in terms of Salt Typhoon trying to get access to their communications. You have Volt Typhoon, which, they've been around for years now. They've been very prolific in gaining footholds in routers and other IoT devices, but they were more focusing on critical infrastructure, both in the United States, Guam, and elsewhere. Water, power, communications again. We talked about giving options for their leadership. Volt Typhoon is a big part of that. And then lastly, Flax Typhoon, which near and dear to our heart here on San Diego, as we were the team that disrupted Flax Typhoon and their botnet in September of this year. Some good information out there if folks are interested, but basically hundreds of thousands of devices in the United States and abroad as part of their botnet that they were using operationally. So the FBI used court-authorized techniques granted to us by judges, and with combining that with some good old-fashioned investigative work and intelligence analysis work, we're able to make an impact with our partners, both domestically and abroad, against Flax Typhoon. So a lot's kept us up at night, but you got to keep moving.
Absolutely. And, both of you focusing on, data breaches, but also ransomware attacks. Often those can go hand in hand. And the way that a lot of those attacks start is by clicking on a link, right? Someone internal clicking on something that they shouldn't and gaining access. And really over the last year, with the proliferation of LLMs, large language models, and generative AI, it's really improved the adversary's ability to write more convincing phishing emails, make more convincing websites. So definitely something that's, I think has added to that. Hey, what's keeping us up at night? The increased sophistication of the entry of those attacks. Appreciate it. With that in mind and that setting of what's kept us up at night over the last year, what new over the last year or even more recently are some cybersecurity innovations and solutions that you're most excited about? And we'll start, Robert.
Well, I'd have to say one of the most exciting and scariest, which you alluded to, is AI. Thinking about AI getting into the cybersecurity realm is scary. I mean, just suddenly you're going to have a race between the good guys and the bad guys, both using AI to try and outfox the other one. Certainly, small businesses are going to be kind of dependent upon the large players such as SentinelOne, CrowdStrike, or Bitdefender to supply those as rapidly as they can to combat the new AI threats coming in. But it's clearly something, again, that speaks for having multiple layers of security in your repertoire to help combat these.
On the prevention side for sure, and
Yeah.
identifying what's going on in your network. Brett, what's anything to build on that, or anything else that's exciting you recently?
Yeah, a little bit of both. I certainly agree with Robert. I mean, that seemed to be, I talked about data breaches as like kind of, the year of the data breach in 2024. I mean, I think large language models, AI has been the topic in 2024. Not just in cybersecurity, but I mean, just in mainstream life. I mean, everyone is talking about it. It's in the new capabilities built into the new iPhone, right? And that's been a selling point for that device. So Robert touched on this, and we've certainly agreed that battle between offense and defense with respect to any new capability or innovation that comes out. You touched on it too, Andy. The barrier to entry is lower now to cybercrime because AI and LLMs are going to make those types of actions from folks who, hey, maybe English is not their first language, or they don't have time to study how a company likes to message out to their employees and everything. AI is going to make it so much easier to ingest that data and put out much more convincing spam and phishing emails. It's going to help. I'm very concerned about deep fakes and how that might be used in the future operationally on the cybercrime for profit side of the house, maybe more so than on the national security side. But kind of moving beyond AI, what came to mind to me, is working cyber. We can all probably agree, like the only constant is change. So, while new innovation can be concerning and provoke all types of concerns and opinions like we've seen with AI, I think we have to embrace change, and those who do well do embrace change. And kind of when I was doing some research on this topic, like I started finding myself agreeing with a lot of private sector researchers, and to include some publications and articles that came out from IBM, talking about maybe one of the next areas of cybersecurity landscape that's in this next phase of rapid evolution would be like quantum computing, right? So for a while we've felt pretty confident in our encryption, but I think that there's been a few studies. One's a little too bullish for me. It was saying, hey, by 2026 there'll be like a 1 in 7 chance that there'll be something out there that break encryption. Another maybe more realistic estimate was, I think by 2031 there'd be like a 50% chance that there will be the ability to break this pretty robust encryption. But with that, you have again on the defense side, quantum safe cryptography or post quantum cryptography, to help rebuild that cryptographic vault and make it more safe against both quantum and classical attacks. So, again, we're going back to that offense versus defense. It can be a little scary when we talk about this quantum computing power being out there, maybe held by only a few right now, but I think that's going to expand over time. And that's going to offer some, scary abilities by our adversaries, both on the national security and the criminal side. But that is an area that I do think, we're public sector, right? But from the private sector standpoint, I do think the bigger companies, probably more so than others, need to keep an eye on that and kind of see how that's evolving in the next 2 to 7 years, and see if there's any adjustments that they need to be aware of when it comes to like that post quantum cryptography. So that's kind of what I'm looking at right now. Again, I think for the time being, language models and AI is going to carry the day, but beyond that, that's going to be my prediction.
Yeah, and that's interesting. That was hit on, I think, at the last quarterly panel as well. I think quantum computing and cyber ready algorithm or quantum ready algorithms to be ready for that are definitely on the horizon. But as you mentioned, that's definitely at the national level, large business level. Robert, to circle back to you, anything that small, medium-sized businesses, a lot of the folks listening to this or watching this panel would be interested in, hey, what do I need to do to be ready, and what are those innovations and those new things that are happening that I can implement or that I should be aware of?
Well, I think for small and medium businesses, one that's going to come out there it's been out there now and will start to be more so, is like ZTNA, Zero Trust Network Architecture, and SASE, Secure Access Service Edge. As one of my network engineers said, everything that's old is new. So a lot of these technologies, they're really old ways of doing things, just repackaged and given a nice new name, and but redone to really be more cloud centric. And I think we'll see those terms come up more as they replace some of the older traditional implementations of VPNs, and again, yeah, those will be for the small medium businesses implementation.
Yeah, as we see as we discussed, the lower barrier to entry for some of these attacks, that zero trust architecture to assume breach, right? Assume breach and still protect your data, that data-centric approach. Absolutely. Brett, I saw you had something to add?
I was just, it was really resonating what you guys were mentioning. And I think getting back to basics at times is important. I mean, keeping things, just again, we're talking, guidance, maybe the smaller businesses and in the San Diego area, right? So like, the basic stuff, right? Patching and keeping your systems updated, zero trust, least privilege, going through and auditing, who has what privileges in your company, who has admin access, what accounts no longer need to be there, if people have moved on or whatever at your company. Just kind of like taking time to do that spring cleaning, if you will, with your cyber hygiene and your network there. I'm not a network defender, an investigator, but just from that perspective of coming in and interacting with victims, unfortunately, in San Diego and in my career in New York before this, those basics can really go a long way. And hey, there's a lot of resources out there too that people can leverage.
And I guess that's a great transition into our next question is what do you see on the horizon in the new year? We're wrapping up this year and people are getting ready, putting their plans in place for 2025. What's on the horizon that all businesses should have on their radar? Anything maybe we haven't discussed yet? And I guess I'll start.
Yeah,
I'll start this one with Brett.
Yeah, let's switch it up. So give Robert a chance to see what I say here. So yeah, from the FBI perspective, I wanted to put something out there that while it's been happening since 2022, I don't think a lot of folks know about it quite yet, but it's been increasing in its volume. It's definitely a trend now, and I think it's going to continue into 2025. I've seen it referred to as compromised identities, remote hiring fraud, whatever term you want to use to describe it. But what we've seen is North Korean IT worker fraud that's been going on, where essentially we'll have IT and cybersecurity professionals in the United States whose identity is being stolen. So, right, we're tying it back to data breaches, we're tying it back to some of the stuff we talked about earlier, but we'll have these bad actors essentially finding the profile of a US-based IT or cybersecurity professional. They will create basically shadow social media and employment types of accounts. So, your LinkedIn, your Instagram, personal domains, all of that. They'll create their own variants of those accounts with that identity as the front end, but they're going to be behind the scenes controlling it. And what they're going to do is seek to gain employment. Now, we're still in this, whether full remote or hybrid era of work, especially in certain sectors, more so than others, perhaps. But on the IT side of things, we're seeing that, hey, we need to hire somebody. Hey, this person looks like a great candidate. They're living in San Diego, fantastic. Companies will do, probably the normal vetting that they do on any candidate applying for a job. There will actually be an interview on Zoom or Teams or whatever the format they want to conduct that interview on, but it will not be sitting down face to face in a physical location. It'll be over the internet, and so that interview typically goes well. Unfortunately, that individual is providing doctored identification documents and other credentials to the human resources department that look real. I mean, they're going to pass that initial muster. The interview is going to go pretty well, 9 times out of 10, and they're going to be hired in this remote IT capacity. They'll say, okay, hey, we're going to ship out your corporate laptop. Where do you want it sent? A lot of times, we're finding that those devices are being sent to an address that's not on their license or not on the address that applicant has provided human resources. So hey, that's a little bit of a red flag, and often than not, it's going to what it's termed as like a laptop farm. And so there's individuals who are collecting dozens of these corporate devices, setting them up on this like a home network, installing unauthorized remote desktop protocol software and other types of software on the devices to allow for the China and North Korean IT workers to RDP in and basically connect to your company's network and do whatever they're going to do. It's typically going to be scanning and then seeing if they can laterally move and then potentially exfiltrate out data, intellectual property, personal health information if it's in the healthcare sector, you name it. They're going to do whatever they're going to. It's an opportunity, crime of opportunity at that point in time, but they've put a lot of legwork in ahead of time to get themselves in a position to credibly present themselves as a US-based, cybersecurity professional or IT professional to gain that access. So, companies have asked me, like, well, how do we defend against that? I mean, how do we know? And there's not right now one easy solution to that. I think knowing that this is happening is part of that awareness piece to, hey, maybe we give a little bit more of a critical look at remote hiring candidates. I don't proclaim to be any kind of like employment expert or know the laws of every state and city in terms of what can be asked or what can be collected during hiring of prospective employees and applicants. But if things aren't matching up, if you're conducting your kind of vetting and open source checks, and you're not seeing links from that identity to an address, and things just aren't matching up, then maybe that is an indicator that this is not someone who they say they are. But I'm also, aware that, hey, with this hybrid era, people could go and say, hey, I'm staying at an Airbnb or Verbo, and that's where I'm going to be doing remote work from, and that does complicate things. So I know that there are some private sector companies out there who've started to detect this scam a little bit more and more. And we are working with them and trying to see what indicators can be aggregated from this scam and the scheme and get that out to the community. So there have been a few kind of more lower level advisories that have come out in the last year. But I'd say that we are due, like once we get some good indicators, look for that from the FBI and our partners at CISA, putting out a joint cybersecurity advisor on this topic.
That's great. Thank you. That's fascinating. Great for our local business community to be aware of. So thanks for sharing that. And then Robert, anything on the horizon in this new year that businesses should have on their radars?
Yeah. So Brett, yeah, that's pretty scary. A lot of businesses hiring remote people, especially when they're struggling to get the cybersecurity help you need, and it's something to look out for. One thing that I've seen that might be a little more happy for a lot of people is passwordless identification. Biometrics, face recognition. I think that has a lot of potential here to make the whole identity process less laborious in remembering passwords and rotating it and all the things we were talking about earlier, not changing it a little bit, just showing that you are who you are just through your fingerprint or something would probably help that and certainly remove the credential compromise that we see out there. On that point, I'll kind of make sure everyone knows, that MFA is really important to have. That one Microsoft study, it prevents like 99.9% of credential compromise. So that whole identity sector, coming along, and hopefully we can just prove who we are much easier going forward.
Well, that's great. Great. And those are things that businesses can be aware of and actually implement in their current ecosystem. No, that's great. Thanks. I know we are just about out of time here, but wanted to allow kind of I really, first of all, appreciate the discussion, appreciate all your perspectives and inputs, and wanted to know if there was any parting advice you have for San Diego businesses to help kind of navigate the cyber threats and tap into available resources. Maybe if they do happen to be a victim of a ransomware attack or a data breach, what are some maybe resources that they have, or what's some advice do you have for the local businesses?
Yeah, happy to jump in here first. So I think from the FBI perspective, just knowing we're here, right? We are victim oriented on the cyber side. As kind of like maybe cheesy as that sounds, that is really our mindset when working this threat. We want to be there, like standing shoulder to shoulder with our partners in the community. And that can look a lot of different ways, right? So like it's not like what you see on TV or in the movies with like, hey, if I get the FBI involved or I give them a call, they're going to show up in like blue windbreakers with FBI on the back and start wheeling out servers, computers, and or publicizing that, hey, company X has a data breach or has a ransomware incident or what have you. It is not in our interest or anything we do to publicize or talk about any sort of incident that's ongoing or any kind of investigation that we would then open into the crime. So I think a lot of companies are concerned, like, hey, if I bring the FBI in, are you going to look at us and try to, be a part of any type of liability discussion or anything like that? And that's just absolutely not the case. It never has been and never will be. We want to be there with our partners. We are a great tactical level resource to reach out to. So what does that mean? Okay, so say you have some sort of incident that happens. Let's take hey, you show up one day and there's a text document on the desktop saying you've been hit with variant blah 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 ransomware. Contact us on Tox. We will discuss the ransom at that time. That would be a great opportunity to simply Google, Bing, whatever your search engine is, the FBI local field office. And if you're in San Diego, that's easy. FBI San Diego, we're in Sorrento Valley, and ask to speak with a cyber supervisor. And we can get you to an agent, to a computer scientist, to whoever might be best equipped to kind of discuss the technical details surrounding that group, that threat actor, what they like to do, maybe give you options of how to mitigate this and get you back on your feet a lot quicker. There's also times, I know even though now it seems like the actors are more switching to a exfiltration and extortion model, back when there was more of an emphasis on encryption, the FBI was always endeavoring to get decryption capability. We have a lot of really interesting techniques dating back to 100 years ago when we use informants and undercover operations. We're doing the same now in the cyberspace, right? So we are always endeavoring to get access to threat actors and what they're doing. A few things come to mind, right? So we had Hive ransomware. We were able to provide, I think, over 800 decryption keys to businesses, saving millions of dollars. And all we asked was that those businesses not share that information publicly to allow us to continue helping victims in the United States. They were able to do so for a long time. I mean, this went on for like almost a year. We were able to keep that secret with our partners, with our private sector, both small companies as well as your huge corporations, and keep that collaboration going. That's also happened with other variants too. If we have decryption capability and if we know ahead of time that your business is being targeted, we are always going to proactively reach out, make contact, and make sure you have that information. So if unfortunately the boom happens, giving us a call to see what we can provide on that tactical level information side, because it's not just FBI. We can get information from our USIC partners, so that's the United States Intelligence Community. We have our international partners, both law enforcement and intelligence services out there that gather information just like we do, as well as our private sector partners. So the FBI makes relationships throughout all 50 states with all types of different companies with different capabilities, or individuals who have different capabilities, and they'll share information with us. That could be information that we provide to you to help you understand what you're facing, help you mitigate that threat a lot quicker, hopefully. And I also will plug our kind of like sister agency out there that we work a lot with these days on the critical infrastructure side, DHS CISA. So if you're one of the 16 critical infrastructure sectors, CISA could be a good resource out there for your business as well. I'm familiar with their tabletop exercises, other types of audits and resources that they can bring to bear. And a new entity that's kind of like newer on the scene that we're going to be working a lot more with at the FBI is the San Diego Regional Cyber Lab, as well as, of course, CCOE, and working with you great people. I'm familiar with the eCISO application and playing around with that a little bit too, just so that I can better understand it when I'm having outreach with partners in San Diego. So those are just some of the resources, but hey, if you forget all of that, just call your local FBI office, ask to speak to a cyber supervisor, and we want to help. We will get you what we can provide, and we'll get you to the right entity who can help you if it's not the FBI.
Oh, that's great. Great resource. Thank you. And yeah, that My eCISO tool on that you can access through the San Diego Cyber Lab is a really neat tool. I believe it was brought up on previous panels here as well. But it is speaking of large language models, it's a chat bot that's been trained in various frameworks, and so you can go in, and it's been used from everyone who's wanted to say, hey, I'm a high school student, I want to secure my parents' home network, to small business owners who say, hey, here's the type of business I have, here's what my network looks like, what kind of things should I be looking at, what kind of policies do I need, what kind of processes do I need, and it can really help step through. For small, medium businesses, it can be a great resource. Yeah, no, it's really neat. Robert, any advice to the business community here in San Diego?
Yeah, well, to leverage off that, I just wanted to thank Brett for his help. I mean, I've been involved with the FBI in a few cybersecurity instances, and they are a great resource, very helpful there to do what they can. On the commercial side, San Diego is a pretty vibrant, active community. As you said, there are 1,000 cybersecurity firms here. So for small businesses, it's good, look for a good cybersecurity partner. Remember that security is a process, not an event. So do your due diligence, find a good partner, and allow them to implement those layered approaches to protect your business and keep you safe. The one thing I'd mention on that is, cybersecurity, unfortunately, is be ready to invest. It's not cheap necessarily, especially if you do it right. But you're kind of left with either investing in that or potentially losing your business.
Yeah, no, and we talked that ties in well with with our lead off, right? Just the cost of a cyber incident, now upwards of $4.5 million,
Yeah.
right? So, no, thanks. Really appreciate it. Brett, Robert, thank you so much for the insightful discussion. We invite businesses and job seekers to visit the CCOE's website at sdccoe.org for more information and free resources. Thank you for joining us, and stay tuned for the San Diego Business Journal's next Cyber Trends panel in February. So thank y'all.
All right. Thanks, Andy.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.